Hello, this is Winona with Sewing and Alterations. Today I'm working on a prom gown. She needs a hem in it. I've just got it marked here where the actual length needs to be. All I did was just put a couple of pins in the very front. There's no need for me to pin all the way around because it's going to be the same measurement based on the front measure anyhow. And I flip it around and there's all my excess. This is a horsehair braid. It is a wide one, so it's going to be really easy to work with in comparison to the smaller ones. I have it hanging on a mannequin so that it'll be stretched and it'll be the full weight of what it needs to be without me gathering up and miscalculating on any of the cuts or the measurements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this measurement and I'm going to use a seam gauge to be able to determine how much needs to come off of this. What I like to do is always mark. I'm using tailor's chalk. This rubs right off. You can use either a damp cloth or just a brush and brush it off. Be sure to remove this stuff before you take this back to your client. If you're ever doing a fitting with a client and using tailor's chalk as the guide or for marking for your measurements, be sure to let your client know that this is removable, that it will not stain or damage their garment in any way. Alright, that's how tall that I need to bring. I need to have the top of this horsehair braid come to that chalk line. There's the top of the braid. And it needs to come to that chalk line. So that means whatever is underneath here that I've got folded, that's how much needs to come off. That's how short it needs to be. Now this client has requested that I keep the extra fabric that's on here. She wants to be able to alter this at a later time if it's needed, and so she wants to bring this gown back to its original manufacturing size. So it's a little challenging, but it can be done. Just requires a little bit more work. That's it. So now that I have the marking where it's at, if you're not sure on your tailor chalk if it's going to last, or if you don't even have any, just get you a pin. Usually safety pins are better because you know you're not going to lose the safety pin. Just get you a safety pin and put it right there. That way you always know where your mark's at. You're not going to have to be going back later going, oh my gosh, where is my mark at? So just get you a safety pin and put it there as well. When I'm working with wedding gowns, that's what I prefer to use is the safety pins because obviously most wedding gowns are whites or ivories and my tailor's chalk does not show up. I do not recommend using the color chalks because they do stain. I've used the blues, I've used the yellows, and I've had no good results because they do leave a little grease mark behind it. So I stick only with the white and safety pins, or I just figure out another way to mark it. Okay, now that I have it marked as far as how high up I need to bring this horsehair braid, I know exactly the measurement underneath here is how much shorter this needs to be. So I'm fairly safe and confident in removing the pins that had it marked originally because I know I'm going to be losing this much. So I've got here, let's see how much shorter she's needing this to be. Alright, I'm resting the end of my seam gauge right at the horsehair. There's the horsehair. So I'm taking it right to the edge of that to where my mark was at with the safety pin or with your chalk, whichever is your preference. And I'm just going to measure it. Now this particular fabric I'm working with is a stretch fabric. So be sure when you're at this stage you're not stretching the fabric out. Just let it relax, let it be natural. And remeasure is always better to measure, remeasure, measure, remeasure, because once you make the cut, you can't go back. Alright, so now I know how much shorter I need to make this. So now I need to determine where I'm going to take this hem up at. I always like to keep my hems in any work that I do to retain the look of what the manufacturer given, because after all, that is what sold the gown in the first place. This is why the client liked the gown. So I don't want to change and deviate away from the manufacturer's design in whatsoever, even if it's just the smallest hidden thing, such as the horsehair braid. So what I need to do, since the client does want me to save the excess, is I'm going to have to undo from here. There's a top stitch here, and then once I undo that, I'll have to undo again from down here, and then I'll be free from the horsehair braid. And then it will flip up once it's complete. On this particular gown, this client will be losing some of this detail. See this detail here? Of these, just some lines, looks like some texture designs is put into here. So unless the client is paying me extra to do all of this, I'm not going to worry with this, because it's nothing that's holding the construction together. It's strictly for cosmetic purposes. It has no bearing whatsoever on the gown itself and the way it wears. So I'm just going to play with this a little bit. I'm trying to get an idea of what is going to be the least invasive on working with this fabric, because I want to make sure this is right the first time, because this fabric is so difficult to undo any threads from and then go back, and each time you do that, it's going to leave marks on this gown, and you're going to be able to tell that it's been redone. And I don't want it to look overworked. I want it to look like it looks now, like it hasn't even been altered. So it's looking like, from what I'm gathering here, there's not going to be any short way around this. And if you know of any short ways around this, leave a comment in the bottom and let me know. So it looks like the only thing I'm going to be able to do is actually remove the horsehair, put it in place. Let's see, I'm going to do just a little mimic of it. Here's the top of the horsehair. There's my other line. There's the other side. I'm going to go ahead and pin that in place as well. I just want to get it stable, and I want to see what I'm working with here on the bottom, because I do know there's no choices. The only place this excess fabric is going to be able to go is right at the bottom of this hem line. So I need to get it in between this horsehair and the gown itself, the fabric. Well, let me fold this over and let's see what I'm working with here. Again, do not stretch this fabric. If a fabric you're working with is of some type of stretch material, do not stretch it. Be sure that you're not pulling on it when you're making alterations, because it will show when you're finished, and especially once it's on the client. Alright, I've got all the excess down. I've got this smoothed down. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pin it at the bottom of the horsehair now. And right now, I'm just determining what's going to be the best way to do this alteration. It's much easier to do it at this stage than it is to undo everything and then realize, oh, I could have did it this way, and it perhaps could have saved me a lot of time. Alright, so I have it pinned in place for now. So top of the horsehair, that's the bottom, so I have all of this excess. Somehow this excess needs to be up underneath here, and that will be her hem. So to determine how I'm going to do that, looks like I can do a deep hem line on this. I may not even have to remove the horsehair braid. take the loose, and let's put these needles in place. Pretend like it was sewn down. Let's say this is sewn. Stitches will be real close to the edge, of course. So I want to get these needles as close as I can to the edge. And again, no stretching of the fabric, just let it fold in place, just draping. It really is all you're doing. All right, I want to get underneath here and see what's happening here and flip this around. So I'm going to go ahead and undo the pins. Now we're holding the top of the horsehair in place. And there's my marking, so I'm not worried about losing my hemline. And I'm going the right direction with that. So this will be how I do my alteration for sure. Now to determine how I'm going to sew that and get that top stitch without it being so bulky at the bottom. This is a full gown, so it may not be that noticeable, but I don't like to work and do alterations based on appearance only. I want it to be based on function as well. And I don't want her hemline to be showing, and with it being so deep as well, I don't want her to get her toe caught into it when she's putting on her shoes. So I really need to think through what I'm going to do with this. Going through the horsehair again. I'm just marking like if I'm actually sewing. This is going to be where the thread is at. So I want to see how this is going to, how it's going to lay, if it's going to work before I actually go through all of this measuring and sewing to discover if it's going to work or not. So it looks secured on the bottom. So if I sew here where my needles are at, and then flip the hair back around the horsehair, I won't even see the seam. So I believe that's the way I'm going to do it. If that's the case, then I will not need to remove this horsehair braid. But that would be too deep right now. See what I did? I'm off by a good ½ inch or so. So what I need to do is just lessen how deep this goes. Just lessen it up a ½ inch of overage that it was, and see. Let's see how it sets then. I'm going back through the horsehair braid. These decorative stitches that are here on the bottom of the hemline actually are kind of helping. I'm using it as my gauge for measuring. Alright. Okay, now I'm going to flip it around. Let's see, where's the top of the hair at? Right where it needs to be sitting at. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to go around and measure the entirety of this hemline. Once I have it all marked, I will come right back to you.